Hi there, my name's Simon and welcome to another episode of the Maserati Guy. So I'm here with the SL500. We just picked it up from the mechanics. It's been in for a couple of sessions to get some work done post-purchase. These were things that I knew that had to be done, things like standard servicing, replacement of wearable parts, things like that. So I thought it'd be useful to take you through what was done and how much it cost. Now, you know me, I'm one of those guys that doesn't make sensible decisions with cars. So I spent a huge amount of money on the SL500, putting the ABC suspension in good order, getting it serviced and everything else. And then I go and sell it and buy an SL500, which has exactly the same problems. But there you go. Life wouldn't be fun if you didn't do stupid things. So let's go through this list. So the first thing was a service A. That includes changing the engine oil, the oil filter, the air filters. Then we also had to do a service B as well, which is an extra bit. So we had air filter, a new fuel filter, and then we had to put spark plugs in. It's a V8 obviously, so it's got 8 cylinders, but this is a twin spark engine, so it actually requires 16 spark plugs. It also requires a new carbon and pollen filter. So that was basically everything on the servicing. Then we had to do a transmission service because the gasket around the bottom of the transmission was leaking. Probably the fluid was a bit dodgy. So we had to buy a transmission service kit. That's probably the gasket around the edge. We had to put 6 litres of transmission fluid in. And the next thing that had to be done was the engine mounts. Now I knew this had to be done when I bought it. Engine mounts, 2 at the front and a transmission mount at the back. When I did the pre-purchase inspection, that was flagged to me, so I knew they were on the way out, so replaced those. They also replaced the drive belt and the various tensioners and idlers that go with that. As I mentioned, it's good practice to replace the idlers and tensioners at the same time as the serpentine belt, and this was done. There was a bit of an oil leak from the rocker cover gaskets, so basically replacing the rocker cover gaskets and various ancillary parts that go with that. Now, while they had the top of the engine off, they replaced the crank position sensor. This is something that's well known to go on these engines. And if you remember when I picked up my SL500 first day, that crank position sensor failed and it stranded me. So I'll leave a link above to that video. So that was the first part of the servicing. The second part of the servicing was really related to the suspension and suspension components. So obviously this is an ABC suspension vehicle. The front left strut was leaking, so we decided to replace both struts with aftermarket R-knot struts. Now, in fact, this is slightly interesting because this front left strut, which was leaking, was actually an R-knot aftermarket, which had been only installed a couple of years ago, and it was leaking. So I'm still in negotiation trying to get that strut replaced under warranty, so fingers crossed we'll be able to save some money on that. So both front struts have been replaced with R-knots aftermarket. Again, another thing I knew when I bought the car was that the control arm bearings and the caster arms needed to be replaced, so that was done at the same time. Obviously, when you replace the struts, you have to flush out the whole system, so that included 8 litres of the ABC fluid and a new ABC filter. As with the SL500 in the video that I'll link above, a radio test was carried out for the purpose of checking that all the ABC components were working properly. It also helps to warm up the fluid and dislodge any particles of dirt that may have got trapped
in the valve blocks.
And then basically the last thing was to carry out the thrust alignment of the wheels. That's just obviously when you do suspension work, you need to make sure everything's aligned properly. And that was it basically. That was the whole of the work that was done. The only additional work that I got done, which was not working before, was the front washer jets had cracked on both sides and they weren't working at all. So I got those replaced as well. Without beating around the bush too much, this was an expensive job. Now, everything in Australia is ridiculously expensive. Parts are ridiculously expensive, labour's expensive. So I had factored in, you know, about 10,000 that I was going to spend, 10,000 Australian dollars that I was going to spend on the car to put it back into good order. And in fact, it came in just a little bit over $10,000. So I'm pretty happy with that. It was what I'd kind of budgeted to put this car into really top flight condition. So I hope you've enjoyed this video where I've gone through the things that I had done to the SL500. I hope you found it useful, because you may come across some of those similar issues if you own a similar car. Let me know in the comments. We'd be interested to hear your experiences. It's always great to hear how other people are dealing with their aging Benzes. So thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to give that like a click. Don't forget to subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram at Maserati Guy 2017. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.